One ringy dingy, 17,311 ringy dingies.
Hello, Eunice.
You have about 2 to 3 minutes, and then it's prayer time, so go ahead.
Well, I'd rather listen to you.
I can't squeeze what I have to say into 2 to 3 minutes. Do you have anything you want to talk about?
Oh, all right. Okay. Fast forward, fast backward. First of all, to your introduction to me of this terminology, flicker-vertigo, and then subsequently something you picked up from somewhere that they were installing miniature cameras in the cockpit, presumably the passenger cabin, to monitor every eye movement and every behavior of passengers and crew and pilots. I put the two together and I said, well, to myself, what happens if they put the flicker vertigo device inside the camera, and then someone on the outside of the aircraft can strobe the individual target at different frequencies and intensities and find out which frequency and which intensity sends the target in a cockpit full of zombies. And then you can do what you like with these people. And of course, in the limit, and it's pretty horrifying, you can have the passengers watching themselves dying or about to die as, let's say, Andreas Lubitz heads towards the mountainside. And these pervs can actually watch you screaming in fear, that is, if you're not in a trance, with your brother, your sister, your child, your mother, your wife or husband beside you, and they get their rocks off. Do you know, did I teach you what getting your rocks off meant, Field, over to you?
Yes, I think you were talking about boulder and gravel, but I see it's almost time. So whether than you bore us to death with what you've recently discovered at age 73 about how one can get his rocks off, I'll just go ahead and start a little bit early with the prayer time and the sabo time, and then we'll get back to your cheesy dribble. So according to my memory, which is not great, in fact, my memory is not great at all. It's Proverbs 3 something, and if anybody knows what it is, nope, nobody said anything yet. Okay, I think it's Proverbs 3, 25 and 26. There's the ringy dingy of the thing, so it's obviously time for me to be reading this. And if anybody finds the scripture before I do, 3, 25 and 6. Let's see. Okay, this is good. By the way, if you were looking for anyone, it would have been under the picture of the nuclear blast or whatever type of conflagration it was in image number 3 from the top. Have no fear of sudden disaster or the ruin that overtakes the wicked. For the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being snared. Snared. Somewhere in Psalm or Proverbs, they talk about the fowler's snare. Can anybody find that? I think that would be great to close out this portion with the fowler's snare. And what a fowler is somebody that traps birds. But we don't have time for that right now. In fact, I just found out, here's where I got it. I was right. It is Proverbs 3, 25 and 26 on page, the October 18th page of Jesus Calling. That's where I got that, because I don't like to pick the scripture because that's sort of a dirty pool. That means I'm picking what we talked about. Gordon over there in London just put up Proverbs 3, 25 and 26. Let's take 90 seconds for all the innocent victims of all the cowards that infest the halls of government of all the nations that I'm aware of. There might be some nation that doesn't have corrupt government. Please, somebody during the 90 seconds of silence, maybe you could educate me. 90 seconds, please. Okay, there's 90 seconds. Apparently, not apparently, I checked it and he's absolutely right. Thank you, Agent Gobsmack. The scripture he found regarding the fowler's snare, or at least one of the one he found, is Psalm 91:3, and it says, "Surely he will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence." Towards the end of this, after David leaves, I'm going to read Psalm 37:23 and Jeremiah. Let me think about that. Jeremiah 5:26-31. These scriptures all talk about what the cabal is trying to do to the free citizens of all these enslaved nations. David, over to you.
So are you going to give a summary of the show, Phil?
I could. Somebody else asked if Denise would be willing to, but I don't know if she really wants to speak about the questions. No? Okay, yeah, I'll do it, David. Hang on. I have to think about how I can do this, come to think of it. I don't have the questions in front of me. Oh, never mind. I got them on. Hang on, David. Bear with me. I'll pull the questions up on my phone. I couldn't believe it because, as most of you know, the time I was on camera, well, you can answer that. How many minutes do you think from start to finish I was on the camera yesterday?
30 to 40, maybe?
She thinks 30 to 40, and I think she's right. Hang on, David, and I'll show you how many questions. And off the top of my head, I think it was 17 questions. What I'll do is I'll read the questions as quickly as I can in a lucid manner, and then I'll go back and we'll discuss them. Block 1 dealt with 9/11. Question number 1, I've been told you went to the same high school as Obama and the same college as John McCain. Do you think this increases or enhances your ability to recognize conspiracies? Question 2, tell us about your personal connection to Captain Chick Burlingame and how maybe this connection changed your view on 9/11. Number 3, and this is a foot stomper, and so while Wildcat tells everybody what a foot stomper is, I'll just tell you of all these questions, and I think there's 17, this is the third one. He only asked me one question twice. It was this one, which was the third question he answered. It was also the last question, the third question he asked me. It was also the last question he asked me. And he wasn't trying to see if I'd give him the same answer. He apparently liked the answer, and so he wanted to hear it again. Number 3, that he did twice. On 9/11, we are to believe that 4 planes were hijacked for well over an hour without any military planes scrambled to intercept them. How is this possible? Give you a hint. I said it was impossible, which it is. Number 4, John Lear, son of the maker of the Learjet, himself a trained pilot, claims it's impossible for 747s to have impacted the Twin Towers at that speed and altitude or to penetrate the buildings. Do you agree? And if so, did planes actually hit the towers? The next question, what's your assessment of the events that took place on 9/11? Keep in mind, I answered all these in 30 to 40 minutes. You have identified the Crown agents of the UK as the ultimate perpetrators of 9/11. Who are they? Tell us about Boeing uninterruptible autopilot equipped drones and why you created these. That's his question. He apparently had been told somewhere that I created them, and I think he was just interpreting my comment that my sister and Hillary used my intellectual property. Okay, the B block of questions has to do with Malaysia 370, and let me stop there. In case none of you noticed, when I was doing the radio show ad for today, I said that a couple of morons had told me not to talk about Malaysia 370, Malaysia 17. What a moronic request. I mean, we do have freedom of speech. But anyway, the questions about 370. I find it interesting that people can't fathom planes disappearing on 9/11 rather than crashing into the towers. But with Malaysia Air 370, we are basically told that the plane just disappeared over the Indian Ocean. What do you believe happened? Okay, question 2 in Block B. Were there people or items being transported on that plane you believe were the targets? It's striking that Malaysia then lost a plane within a couple of months over Ukraine with MH17. What is the correlation between these two? I really liked answering that. The next question, what is the correlation between Malaysia Airlines and a secret operation? If anybody has an opinion on that question, please post it, and Denise will tell me when she sees it. Was Malaysia 17 ultimately shot down by the Russians or the Ukrainian rebels? Was it part of a smuggling operation, or did it have to do with any sort of illegal movement of money? Block C, the questions are: intelligence controls the media. People tend to watch the mainstream news and believe it, but who is telling the media what to say? 2, if the media is a controlled medium, then what did 9/11 and the disappearance of these planes cause the public to do that allowed a possible bigger plot behind the scenes to happen? We know that less than 10 corporations control the vast majority of the media outlets, but what is the corporate agenda in media? Is it just about selling their goods and products? The last question in Block C, how can people be empowered to discover what is really going on rather than trapped by fear? And then there's this wonderful image that I hope somebody will put up. It's page 18 of Amalgam Virgo, because it's really critical to several of the answers. But let's go back to the questions, especially if I can find them since I just erased them. Here we go. I found the questions. So David, let's go question by question, and I'll tell you what I answered, or do you want to tell me what your answer would be? And you're going to have to be brief. Keep in mind that I answered all these questions adequately in 30 minutes approximately. So the first question in Block A, I've been told, well, never mind, you don't answer it, I will. I've been told you went to the same high school as Obama and college as John McCain. Does this enhance your ability to recognize conspiracies? I said yes, and you guys all know the answer, that Obama wasn't named Obama when he was an Indonesian Muslim at Punahou, and McCain's a traitor, and a third generation traitor at that. We'll just go back one generation to his father. His father was involved with covering up the USS Liberty. Okay, question number 2. Tell us about your personal connection. I guess I'm going to have to answer this one too, David. Tell us about your personal connection to Burlingame and how this connection changed your view of 9/11. What I believe I said, and Denise can stomp her foot if she has something to add or change, but I believe I said that because Chick Burlingame and I both went to the Naval Academy in the class of 71, and because we both flew Phantoms, he for the Navy and me for the Air Force, and because we both were airline captains, he for American and me for Northwest, I said I thought it was my obligation to defend his legacy and his honor since he had been murdered on 9/11 by the people that wanted to cover up the fact that he wrote the Amalgam Virgo 01 war game exercise. And of course, I explained on camera that the exercise went live. And knowing that had he been alive on the ground working at the Pentagon, he would have recognized his own war game plan, just like I recognized the droning of the airliners and the decoys and the drones. And so I recognized what I sort of know about, and he would have certainly recognized what he had written. This is the foot stomper, and he asked me this question twice, David, so maybe if this is a good question for you to answer, we'll start with you. I don't know because I got to read the question. On 9/11, we are to believe that 4 planes were hijacked for well over an hour without any military planes to scramble to intercept them. How is this possible? Why don't you try to answer that in 20 seconds, David? Over to you.
It's only possible if the rules of engagement have been changed and they have a way of communicating direct with the pilots to send them in the wrong direction.
Okay, well, that's an interesting observation. What I told him both times he asked me was it's impossible. And the only way it could be done is if the U.S. military was stood down by an agreement, and that agreement was signed between the textile king, Henry Shelton, 4-star chief of staff of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and not an overly intelligent one at that, and his Canadian counterpart, Major General Maurice Brill. And if anybody can post page 18 of Amalgam Virgo, you can see that document. I pointed to that document in saying this is where the treason of 9/11 occurred. When Shelton and Maurice Brill signed that document on the 20th of August of 1999, Shelton was committing treason. The next question, John Lear, son of the maker of the Learjet and himself a trained pilot, claims that it's impossible for airliners to have impacted the Twin Towers at that speed and altitude to penetrate the buildings. Okay, let's stop there. Well, anyway, David, do you have an answer to that? A brief one.
Uh, well, we think that the planes went over the top and the towers were hit by a drone.
That's confusing. The drones, in this case, he's talking about the drones. He's just not admitting they're drones. His question is, can a droned airliner achieve that airspeed at that altitude? Do you have an opinion?
Yes,
Okay, what's your opinion?
it can.
Okay, your opinion's right. Then it says, do you agree? And if so, and that second half of the question was, can the airplanes penetrate the buildings? Do you agree? And if so, did the airplanes actually hit the tower? You want to try to answer that? I already answered it and it's on tape, but go ahead if you want.
Well, anything drone properly armed can penetrate a building.
If it does what?
If it's pointed at the building and it's properly protected to get inside the building, like a bunker buster.
Yeah, that's a confusing answer, but you got the elements correct. About 2 frames before United 175's drone hit the building, it fired a piece of forward firing ordnance off its lower right side, and that was a bunker busting Raytheon product, which accelerated into the building, blew a hole in it, and then the smack sound collapsed the airliner into plasma, and the plasma entered the building through the hole. That's the answer I gave him. The next question: what's your assessment of the events that took place on 9/11? That's not a very clear question, is it, David?
No, it doesn't. It's too big.
Yeah, I thought so too. So I told him my assessment is that it's an exercise, multiple exercises that went rogue because the Canadians took them that way. And the Canadians took them that way because they had command of the NORAD assets on that morning, and they had stood down all the American NORAD assets. And I clearly fault General Eberhart, the four-star in charge of the Air Force, and Colonel Robert Marr, the NEADS commander. NEADS stands for Northeast Air Defense Sector, because as soon as this thing went live, they should have thrown the bullshit flag at the Canadians and launched everything. And I've mentioned that a lot, and people think I'm nuts. That's okay, go ahead. I would have launched everything. If you don't know who's attacking you and what they're going to attack next, get everything that's flyable off the ground, even if it has no radar, even if it has no weapons, and even if it's short of fuel. You don't need a radar or weapons to save an asset. And if you need some fuel, the tankers are also being scrambled. And a lot of those tankers would be alert tankers that are full of fuel. So if you needed fuel, you could get it. Anyway, the next question: you have identified the Crown agents of the United Kingdom as the ultimate perpetrators of 9/11. Who are they? Over to you, David.
Well, they were set up in 1835 to handle major projects for the Crown. They had access to some very wealthy investors, and they have handled, let's say, embarrassing events to give the Crown plausible denial. And I would argue they probably did Pearl Harbor. Over to you.
Yeah, I would too. Lord Mountbatten was over there sniffing around and he forgot about the Red Hills fuel arsenal. Otherwise, although maybe, who knows, maybe they just wanted us to be injured instead of dead. But another thing that's sort of a red herring of not of 9/11, but of Pearl Harbor, is the fact that the warships that were at sea were the modern ones, and the warship that were sitting ducks were the old ones. And so that would also give us a little hint of foreknowledge. Next question in block A. Tell us about Boeing uninterruptible autopilot equipped drones and why you created these. First of all, I pointed out to him that I didn't create them, but I did provide the intellectual property to my sister. And I didn't say it on camera, but I did say it off camera that it was Hillary Clinton that I provided it to also. How would you answer that, David? Tell us about the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot equipped drones.
It was a system where every Boeing aircraft, properly modified, was attached to a network set up by Hillary Clinton called the Federal Bridge Certification Authority, where you could impute timing signals into the autopilot of a Boeing aircraft and in a manner that rendered it impossible to recover by the pilot. Over to you.
Yeah, okay, that's why they call it uninterruptible. B block of questions. I find that this is Sean Stone speaking, and for those of you who are not aware of it, 93% of you are aware of it, 7% aren't, so here's for the other 7%. He's the son of movie maker Oliver Stone, and Sean himself is also a movie maker, both documentary. I got to see if Bucky's here for this one. I don't think Bucky's here. He was here earlier, but he's gone now. He also is a movie maker. He's a script writer. He's a venture capitalist. He's an actor, and he's very much a good guy. Let's stop and see if Denise wants to. What do you think of Sean Stone? Weren't you favorably impressed? Yep, she's nodding her head and saying yes. He's a very pleasant guy, very approachable, extremely knowledgeable for a 31-year-old. He was fluent on all these subjects. And it wasn't because he read anything I did. He knew about it from other sources. Block B. I find it interesting that people can't fathom planes disappearing on 9/11 rather than crashing into the towers, but with Malaysia 370, we're basically told that the plane just disappeared over the Indian Ocean. What do you believe happened? Okay, David, what do you believe happened?
I think the plane was guided past line of sight other planes along a trajectory determined by the people in the control room, which may very well be these adjusters, around which there are about 40 in the States. But I think they're basically under remote control, and they're driven around the places that people would normally pick them up visually. Over to you.
Somebody just asked about Christine Marcy's email address, so here's what I put in so far. I may be able to find it, but if I were to find it, I'd have to find it on a big computer, not my phone, because it's been probably 8 years. Oh, somebody else. Okay, I think those are very, very old, Radar O. Christine Marcy at usms.gov. She quit being at USMS, Marshal Service, and Department of Justice a long, long time ago. But I probably have a personal email address for her at home. So whoever Radar O'Reilly is, and I think I know, if you could email me, fieldmcc@yahoo.com, I will give you her personal email address if I have it, and I think I do. And then you can post it to the world if you want. You know, maybe she'd like to know that she was the subject of quite a discussion on the Sean Stone interview yesterday. Let's take a look at the next question. I can't remember what the last one was, but okay, the last one was, I find it interesting, blah, blah, blah. We are basically told the plane just disappeared over the Indian Ocean. Do you believe that happened? No, I told him it never disappeared, that it flew the flight plan up to Bai Thad intersection, and Bai Thad is where the Vietnamese, Singapore, and Malaysian airspace coexist, and so there's kind of confusion. So let's just say this little circle here is the airspace I'm talking about at Bai Thad. When Malaysia 370 is in there, if it were to be talking to Malaysia, Singapore and Vietnam wouldn't hear the conversation necessarily. Now, if it was communicating with nobody because the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot had just turned off the comm radios, the ACARs, and the transponder, well, then 2 out of 3 of the, well, no, all 3 of them, all 3 countries could think the other, one of the other 2 countries is communicating. For instance, Singapore could think, well, Vietnam or Malaysia must be talking. Malaysia could think Singapore or Vietnam must be talking. Vietnam could think, well, either Singapore or Malaysia must be talking to these guys. And then they'd have more coffee, smoke a cigarette, and look at their girly magazine. Okay, so the question is, was it lost? And the answer is no. It went to Bai Thad. It did a 180. That's because I believe Serco took it there. I believe that white hats in the U.S. military working on Cope Thunder and Cobra Gold took it shortly thereafter and flew it past Kuala Lumpur, south of the landmass, turned it right, and eventually headed it over to the Maldives, where it made a left turn, went south to Diego Garcia, and landed at 0651. And I pointed out to Sean Stone and whoever might hear his interview that the reason I say this is because the Rolls-Royce RB211 or whatever they were, Trent engines, have self-generating power supplies on engine number 1 and engine number 2 that regularly download all the significant engine operating parameters. And in each report, it gives a geographical position and a Zulu time. So therefore, the possibility that Malaysia 370 was ever unobserved is just a raft of crap. The next question, were there people or items being transported on the plane that you believe were the targets? Over to you, David. I'll go after you.
Yeah, thanks, Field. I think there's a very strong probability they were after the technical people from Freescale Semiconductors, of which there were 20, 12 Malays and 8 Chinese citizens, as far as I understand. And Freescale Semiconductors was working on stealth technology, which can make a plane appear invisible through manipulation of the radar return. Over to you.
Okay, that's pretty much what I told him when I talked about your dog wants out. You want to go to let him out?
No, I think he's just being erratic, so I'll give him a few times. If he does bark more, I'll put him in the car.
Okay, or I've got a 22 you can borrow. I can mail it to you overnight.
Oh, Field.
Oh, you rather a 12 gauge? I mean, I'm flexible. Anyway, I said free scale too, but I said 12 Chinese and 8 Malays, but it doesn't matter. There were 20 of them. It's significant to point out, as I did point out, that about 4 of those free scale software engineers shared in the patent ownership of the patent, and they shared it with Nathaniel Charles Jacob Rothschild. And of course, since the patent hadn't been granted until like maybe 3 nanoseconds after the airplane was supposedly lost, Rothschild ended up with full ownership of that patent. I also, in answering this question, and the question was, what do you believe happened? As far as the cargo manifest, what I said on tape yesterday, and I hope I'm right, I believe I'm right, I said as far as I know, the cargo manifest of Malaysia 370 has never been made public, and it probably never will be made public because there was some U.S. military hardware in the cargo hold that was on its way to the Chinese. So who was sending it to the Chinese? I don't know, but it was captured over in the Middle East, I believe, and whoever was sending it to the Chinese obviously was cooperating with the nation of Malaysia and the Chinese to the detriment of the United States of America. The next question was, were these people or items being transported on the plane that you, oh no, never mind, that's the one we just did. It's striking that Malaysia then lost a plane within a couple of months over Ukraine with MH17. What's the correlation? Okay, it's not exactly a couple months. It was the dates in question are March 8th of 2014 for Malaysia 370 and July 17th for Malaysia 17. David, I'll read the question, then you can answer. It's striking that Malaysia then lost a plane within a couple months over Ukraine with MH17. What's the correlation between these two events? Over to you, David.
Well, we can argue that the aircraft that was disappeared, MH370, may well have supplied the hull and some of the bodies that ultimately went via Amsterdam and heading towards Kuala Lumpur along a route that up to, I forget the name of the waypoint, but after that waypoint, the 9 preceding flights of that number went south of Ukraine. This one was diverted over to East Ukraine and then destroyed in an area controlled by rebels. So all of the evidence was taken away. Over to you.
Yeah, I said that the purpose for Malaysia 17 was to get rid of the airframe. The registration number, I believe, is 9 Mike Romeo Oscar. So they had a little evidence they had to get rid of. Why did they have to get rid of it? I don't know. If I were in charge of Diego Garcia, I wouldn't have done that. I would have said, we took the airplane from Serco, we landed it safely, and when we opened door 1 left, we found 239 corpses that had been killed by the ATI. But for whatever reason, the American, Brits, and Israelis on Diego Garcia didn't feel comfortable in sharing the truth, so then they contrived this deal where on the 17th of July, they sent it as a drone from Amsterdam, destined for Kuala Lumpur, and then just before it reached Ukrainian airspace, as you mentioned, it was taken off course, flown into contested airspace, whereupon it was impacted by weapons of unknown origin. And I say that because the United States has not been identified as the perpetrator of the downing of Malaysia 17 yet. And whatever weapon was used against Malaysia 17 is widely suggested to be Russian or Ukrainian in origin. No, I think it's probably U.S. in origin, but anybody that disagrees, feel free to email me, fieldmcc@yahoo.com. Um, I, I discussed this and I said to Sean, I said, you know, I'm not being egotistical about this, but I'm in a unique position because I think I was the only pilot called to Malaysia by some people that I've not publicly identified very often, but I'm willing to, especially if they keep telling me not to talk anymore, which, of course, they might as well pee into the wind. Um, but I think I'm the only pilot that was called to Malaysia. I'm 100% sure I'm the only person in the world that predicted accurately that they would suffer a second explosive event no later than 1900 hours on the 17th of July of 2014. I made that warning in writing on the 29th of March of 2014. So what that means is 3 months and about 20 days before Malaysia 17 was targeted. I predicted it would happen no later than 7 p.m. It happened at 5:35 p.m., where the 239 decomposing corpses from Malaysia 370, along with 44 freshly killed corpses from Holland, none of them which had blood in their bodies, fell upon the landscape of the Ukraine. Now, I find it odd that the people who did this, and the only people that I know that are so inept in one of these type operations that they would leave these visible details, have to be the Americans. Now, whether it's the CIA or some of Barry Squatero's agents, I have no idea. But it's not the Russians, it's not the Ukrainians, I don't believe. But we have other people like Jack Mack and Kinu who have very good insights as to what probably happened. And if they have some opinions that are better than mine, they're certainly encouraged to share them so we all have the best possible opinion of what happened, because we're never going to have the facts, because the facts are always going to be covered up, as they have been by the Dutch, the Australians, the Malaysians, and who am I forgetting? Oh, of course, the Brits. Meanwhile, the next question. Intelligence controls the media. People tend to watch the mainstream news and believe it, but who is telling the media what to say? David, I suggested two entities that are telling the media what to say. What's your answer?
Well, I think the principal one is Serco, because it has that contract for resilience with the United Kingdom Cabinet Office, which injects media play and news events that we all get to listen to.
Well, that's one. Did you have two?
Besides Serco?
Let me repeat the comment. That's one. Do you have two?
No, I think it's Serco.
Okay, but the question was, let me go back and read the question. In fact, Okay, intelligence controlled the media. People tend to watch the mainstream news and believe it, but who is telling the media what to say? So you think it's only Serco that tells the media what to say?
Yes.
Okay, well, I think it's the intelligence agencies. In the case of the United States, I think it's the Democratic National Party. And of course, globally and internationally, I agree that it's Serco. So the next question is, if the media is a controlled media, then what did 9/11 and the disappearance of these planes cause the public to do that allowed a possible bigger plot behind the scenes to happen? Do you want to answer that one, David?
I'll give it a shot. I think the bigger plot is the movement towards the invention of government, which your sister celebrated in the Great Hall of Justice. And that is a movement towards a supranational government of world bankers and a feminist elite. That's the big picture. Over to you.
Okay, I'll read the question, and my answer is already on tape, so I can't change my answer, and I can't even recall it verbatim, but I can estimate it, and I will as soon as I read it. If the media is a controlled medium, then what did 9/11 and the disappearance of these planes cause the public to do that allowed a possible bigger plot behind the scenes to happen? Well, it instilled a lot of fear, and it caused people around the world to think, well, I hope my government protects me from this crap, which crap being the key word, because all these reports are crap. But that allowed, with the government having more control to protect the citizens, and of course, we citizens have a reduction in our personal liberties. And that's how I answered the question. And what did it, what a possible bigger plot behind the scenes to happen? Well, right now they're talking about World War III, which isn't going to happen, by the way. But someone, and I can't remember who it was, somebody put up a really good image of a bunch of bombers, mostly B-52s and B-1s. I didn't see any B-2s in the picture, but if whoever posted that picture of the bombers at FJDG, which is ICAO speak for Diego Garcia, if you could put that back up again. Everybody look at that. Tell me if you see any B-2s, because I know there's B-2s on Diego Garcia. The question is, where are they? And I think the answer is they're in air-conditioned portable hangars. And if Jack Mac's here, let's see if Jack Mac's here. Is Jack Mac here? I hate computers. Jack Mac's here. Yeah, Jack Mac, what do you think of my answer? The B-52s and the B-1s are visible, and I don't have the, you know, somebody just put the picture up again, Gordon Baggs, thank you. The B-52s are on the left vertical line facing east. Well, wait a minute, I'm presuming I'm looking north. There's also 2/3 majority of B-52s facing west. Then at the extreme north end, and I'm assuming we're looking north, there's about 5 or 6 B-1s, but I don't see any B-2s. But there are B-2s there, so that begs the question, are they underground or are they in portable hangars where they're air conditioned? And Jack Mac, if you have an opinion, please share it with us for the benefit of all. And Kinu, I said, just put up something. I believe that 370 was transferred from Diego Garcia to the killing zone of MH17. Yeah, of course it was. It was flown as a drone out of Amsterdam. It was probably flown with human pilots out of Diego Garcia to Amsterdam. I don't know. Is that like a blue light special? I don't know what that means. Okay, wow, good picture for the airfield. How'd you get that? That is a very good question. So hopefully somebody has the answer. Let me think about the next thing. 2 more questions, David. We know that less than 10 corporations control the majority of media outlets, but what is the corporate agenda in media? Is it just about selling the goods and products? Over to you, David.
I think 10 corporations can very easily be controlled through fear. Again, back to Serco. So Serco has the ability to tell any corporate boss of any media, whether it's Reuters, that unless they publish and do what's provided to them, then that individual or his wife will get on a plane on a one-way journey. So unfortunately, once Serco's got inside the National Command Authority, and in fact, Serco, I don't know if you remember, Phil, actually operates the Red Switch network, and that's bypassed Barry Soetoro, and they've flipped over to this reinvention of government, full name Federal Bridge Certification Authority. And people should remember that every Boeing's command, control, communications, and intelligence equipment is operated by Serco. So why Boeing would outsource that to a British company, I don't know, but that's certainly part of the grand scheme of things. Over to you.
Well, maybe they do that because they were told that if they don't do it, tomorrow 25 Boeings are going to disappear at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. In fact, they could all disappear at the same time. I just lost that question. Let me get it back. We know that less than 10 corporations control the majority of media outlets, but what is the corporate agenda in media? Is it just about selling goods and products? No, it's about controlling the world, and they're going to fail. I mentioned on the interview yesterday that Serco was a private corporation that controls our entire government, and I pointed out that our government's been a corporation since the Organic Act of 1871, but the slave masters that keep all of us slaves on the North American slave colony under their thumb is Serco. And is it just about selling goods and products? No, they'll sell goods and products. They will also control who's allowed to sell goods and products. A lot of people, when I talk about the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot, they think I'm trying to somehow be critical of Boeing. No, I'm probably Boeing's best potential witness if this ever goes to a courtroom, because the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot, hope you're listening, David, instead of thinking, the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot is a GE piece of gear, or as you guys in England would say, kit. But the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot was designed and patented by Honeywell, and it's produced by General Electric. So poor old Boeing gets blamed for it. And I know for sure that high-level installers and checkers and engineers and mechanics at Boeing never heard of it until Abel Danger started talking about it. And I'll leave it at that. The last question was, how can people be empowered to discover what is really going on rather than trapped by fear? And David, you go ahead and answer that, but before you do, I'll tell you that my answer didn't include anything about Christianity. But go ahead. The question, David, to you is, how can people be empowered to discover what is really going on rather than be trapped and paralyzed by fear?
I think JFK said that we have nothing to fear, but fear itself was very profound. And I think you and I feel to have a job and a responsibility is if you explain to people how this happens, they needn't be afraid anymore. They can go out and fix it. And I think that's the best resolution. Explain. And I think the challenge of actually understanding it is actually far less than the challenge of communicating successfully. But you might have your own view on that. Over to you.
I already forgot the question because I was in the chat room. How can people be empowered to discover what's really going on rather than trapped? I suggested they turn away from the mainstream media, and I believe I pointed out on camera that I get weekly requests from Wall Street Journal and the LA Times to spend $1 a week to have access to their electronic newspaper, to which I always send them a response. Why would I want to pay $1 a week to find out what's not true? Also the TV, movies, the mainstream media, it's all BS. It's all intended to make us be fearful and therefore depend on our governments to keep us safe. Well, I made it quite clear yesterday that it's our governments that put us at risk. And in my case, I know of what I speak, and it is in fact the United States government that's my biggest enemy. But I'm not worried about that because as I quoted today in Proverbs 3:20, whatever it was, 26 and 27 or 3:25 and 26, whatever I quoted, and I didn't make it up, I just read it right out of the book. But we don't have to be afraid of all this stuff because it's not the Bush and Clinton crime families and their multicolored lapdog, Barry Swatero, that are in charge. God's still in charge, and maybe he doesn't move fast enough for our individual taste, but he moves fast enough to gain the victory. If you want to see that in writing, is Proverbs, now I wonder if I can remember, Proverbs 21:31. Someone's going to post it, somebody named Gordon Banks. And off the top of my head, Proverbs 21:31 says, the horse is made ready for the day of battle, but victory rests on the Lord. So David, you can feed the horse and train the horse and groom the horse, and I'll clean. I think the Brits would say I can muck out the stable, but when the horse enters the race, the horse will win, and it'll be a white, well, perhaps a white horse and a very brilliant white rider. It won't be David Hawkins and I. It won't be the mainstream media. It won't be Sean Stone. It won't be his father, Oliver Stone. Some of us are working on the good team. Some of us are working on the bad team. The ones working for the good team have an eternal prize. The ones working on the bad team, not only are they going to suffer failure, but they've got a future that involves what's written in Hebrews 10:26 and 27 off the top of my head. And while David says whatever he wants to say next, which could be some of his last words, looking at the time, I'm going to go to Hebrews and see if I'm right with what these enemies of God have to look forward to. I think it's Hebrews 10:25 and 26. David, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So what I proposed to do when I heard about what you got up to in Boulder and saw the questions, I raced ahead and tried to put 4 paragraphs today in today's post, and I think I'm going to number it 2809 with nothing attached, and just a rider at the bottom that says people can check the preceding quotes and articles. So this is paragraph 1. Abel Danger claims that Hillary Clinton offers a murder for hire service to Clinton Foundation donors who can buy access to Federal Bridge Certification Authority networks and use patent pool devices to eliminate names on mutually agreed kill list. Now, how old is the concept of kill lists and the Crown agents? I would think that the Crown agents in 1835 were already operating with the idea of having a kill list to remove inconvenient and irritating people from the point of view of the Crown. And the Crown, of course, is an office, it's not an individual. The individual in that office is probably, from a plausible denial point of view, kept as remote as possible from the crime scene. And I don't believe that elderly lady, Queen Elizabeth II, has a clue of what's going on. She might smell corruption, but if her agents do not provide her with the information she needs to make the right decision, they are actually in violation of what we understand to be a constitutional monarchy. So that's point one. The second paragraph is AD claims that Clinton, a former patent lawyer, is using Serco 8A companies to extort mentors, including Boeing, into backdooring patented devices, so unwitting users of the Federal Bridge, including pilots, can be disabled with flicker-vertigo devices in Zulu time. And I have to take my hat off to my former countrymen, because it's pretty ingenious. If you can load up a cockpit of a Boeing, or for that matter any other aircraft, with small cameras that can flash in the eyes of the pilot or the co-pilot or the stewardess or crew or whatever, and actually adjust the flicker rate and the intensity of the beam until they go into a trance, and that's apparently very doable. And then show the passengers, you isolate the communications of the aircraft to anyone except for the conspirators on the ground. And we have to remember that the world's largest air traffic controller is Serco. Then you can actually have the passengers, and of course the perpetrators are really sick, watch their own demise. And I'm just visualizing the people screaming in the cabin when Andreas Lubitz is said to have flown his aircraft into the side of a mountain with the regular pilot locked outside, beating on the door, and the voice cockpit recorder showing that Andreas Lubitz, who was not nuts, he might have been stressed, would appear to have been breathing perfectly normally. The only way I can think of that, not being a psychologist, is he's in a trance. Of course, ATI is one explanation, but the great advantage of using flicker-vertigo devices is you can switch it on and off. If you want the individual out of the trance, switch the bloody thing off, unless you're actually trying to blind him with intensity of light that actually burns his retina. So you have a lot of flexibility with the flicker-vertigo device, and I really thank you, Field, for naming that and identifying that technology. Of course, what I did with the kind of work we do is see if there's any patents related to flicker-vertigo. There's quite a lot, but there's a great one of interest in 1988. Now, 1988, as we know, is when your sister called you and said, how can I handle a mutiny? And you told her about the droning. Now, one thing I do concede, your sister's not dumb. I think she's evil. I think she's manipulated, and I think actually she's scared to death. But death is perhaps the fate that she deserves. I don't know what kind of death, but God will decide. Man proposes and God disposes. So the third paragraph, which is just going into the chat, is AD claims that Serco, the world's largest air traffic controller, can put pilots of Boeing aircraft into a trance with patented flicker devices and use tiny cameras to deliver a time-stamped snuff film to Clinton donors via private servers attached to the Federal Bridge. So it's my belief that the server in the basement of the Clinton home allowed her to watch real-time snuff films, including a snuff film of the passengers inside MH Flight 370 or MH17. She would have been able to watch and her like-minded associates would have been able to watch a real-time snuff film. Now that would create a little club of people who get to see real-time snuff films and the people who get the spin by the media. So I think the Clinton Foundation is actually, from a psychological point of view, immensely strong. From a forensic point of view, it's very vulnerable to people like you and me, Field, and the members of Abel Danger, because whatever they do, however they squirm, however they twist, however they threaten, the truth will out. And they are at the mercy of events far more powerful than they will ever be. So I'll put the fourth paragraph in. And United States Marine Field McConnell has briefed Donald Trump on how Hillary Clinton's aides operate a murder-for-hire service on the Federal Bridge and how he can neutralize the threat to the passengers and crew on his Boeing 757. And I think that's the death blow, because if Trump can understand that his aircraft can be taken out at any time with him on it or members of his family on it by Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, he's going to be, and he's a man of considerable energy, I think he's going to be significantly energized for the debate tomorrow. So I urge anyone who can think they can get through to the Trump campaign before tomorrow's debate. I'm going to be watching it with my ex and a bottle of wine. And I think that Hillary is potentially going to go into a catatonic. Did I teach you what catatonic went, Phil? Over to you.
Well, actually, you just misspoke, and I'll give you a chance to clean up your verbiage. You just said, have I told you what a catatonic went, Field? That's what you said, verbatim.
Oh, yes, there was a slight error there.
Okay, did you want to straighten out your slight error?
No, I'll leave it to you, because I mean, that's what you're paid for.
Yeah, that's right. You're such a mess. I'm trying to remember what your question was. Oh, yes, you asked me if I knew what was the word you were wondering?
I wondered if you knew what No, normally my phrasing is, did I teach you what catatonic is?
Yes, on the 8th of August of 2007, we were discussing leverage, arbitrage, British Invisible, Mitt Romney's mantle pants, Bill Clinton's voodoo underwear, and the fact that until Abel Danger pointed out that the Clinton Foundation has operated a U-2, specifically U-2, and please, let's see, who can I pick on? I'm not going to pick on Gob Banks. Maybe Jackie Stamp could post this. The U-2 that has been used by the Clinton Foundation, the registration number of that U-2 is 80-1076. 80-1076. The Clinton Foundation used that against poor blacks in Katrina in 2005. The Clinton Foundation used it against poor blacks in Haiti in January of 2010, I believe it was. Somebody can correct me if I'm off on the Haiti earthquake. By the way, the Haiti earthquake involved HARP, and HARP is operated, I think, Jack Mack can correct me, or Gobsmack, or some of the other rapid Googlers. I believe that HARP is now under the control of Raytheon. So what you have is you have Raytheon and U2 80-1076 and the Clinton Foundation killing poor black people. And, you know, God doesn't, since he created the rainbow of colors, the white people, the yellow people, the red people, the black people, and the brown people, God doesn't like it when anybody targets any one of the populations that he has created. And Denise and I were just in Boulder, and what I'm going to characterize in the future as Operation Boulderado. Boulderado is a combination of Boulder and Colorado. And David, yes, you did teach me about that word, but I was wondering, did I ever teach you what city it was that John Benet Ramsey was killed in?
Boulder, Colorado.
Okay, where was I the last 2 days?
Boulder, Colorado.
So what did you think I was doing there?
Solving John Benet.
Well, who knows? But anyway, it was a great trip. And Denise thinks it's a great trip too. And those of you who have Denise's email address, you should ask her and get her own words about what a wonderful time we had from soup to nuts. because when we got off the airplane, there was a very nice car waiting for us and us alone. And it took us to the hotel, which was very nice. And then we had dinner the first night. And I'm trying to think, yeah, we had dinner by ourselves, but after dinner, no, it's the second night that Sean Stone showed up and we had dinner with him and two of the other guests. And David, have I ever tried to express to you that try as we might, we can't keep up with God, and God arranges things in a spectacular fashion?
I think I understand that, Phil.
Okay, good, because you know the name Colonel Sabo, right?
I do.
Yeah, there's an attorney that was involved 25 years ago in trying to figure out what happened to Colonel Sabo, and that attorney's name is Daniel Sheehan, Sheehan. And when we had dinner and we had after dinner drinks, which means 6 of the 7 people at the table had hot cocoa, and one of the people at the table didn't have hot cocoa, and people can guess who is who. But the guy to my immediate right was Daniel Sheehan, and he was the attorney that was involved in the Sabo murder. And as luck would have it in Boulder, I sat right next to him 2 nights ago, and that was interesting. And see, I could be making all this stuff up except for one thing. Denise was an eyewitness to everything that I did. And I'm glad she was, because it made the trip much more pleasant to have somebody to talk to and have dinner with and breakfast with and go for a car ride. But from the time we took the car ride to the Boulderado until the time yesterday, we spent a couple of hours in the studio. Then we got picked up by the same nice car, and the same nice car took us back to the airport. We hopped on our flight, and we didn't get overly harassed by TSA. Then we got back to Minneapolis and drove home, and life goes on. So yes, you did tell me what that meant, but now that we all understand ad nauseum what it means, go ahead and make your point.
Well, I think there's another way of looking at catatonic. It could be someone who has a tonic water while they're working on analyzing the catastrophe bond or cat bond frauds of 911. But that's another diversion field. I think the important thing now is that we are very close to being able to prove that the Clinton Foundation is a murder for hire network that was set up in 1997. That's the year Lady Di was murdered in Paris. And I think back then it was the sort of the William J. Clinton Library in Arkansas. But he was gathering together the criminals that would develop an MO that we see today that has projected the Clintons into a position where they're potentially going to put this woman into the White House. But there's no statute of limitation on murders. Excuse me. And I think the important thing to understand is, how can they kill and get away with it? I think the Federal Bridge and remote hijacking is the way to do it. So my voice is quitting. Phil, over to you.
Okay, great. Well, if you decide you want to end your life, I did send you a 22. I only sent 1 bullet, so you'll have to decide whether you want to silence your dog or silence your cough. But anyway, since you're done, what are you going to sign off? Wait a minute. Before you sign off, I got to admit to Gobsmack that I misquoted Hebrews. I said Hebrews 10:25 and 26, which he posted, and I meant Hebrews 10:26 and 27. So if anybody wants to look, the stuff that Gobsmack posted was good, and just add 27 to it and you'll get the whole schmear. Number 2, I wanted to point out that the comment about all we have to fear is fear itself, that was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was sort of a coward. Why do I say that? Because Prescott Bush should have been charged with treason, and instead of being charged with treason, Prescott Bush was given a lot of power by Roosevelt, who was afraid of him. Roosevelt also got rid of Joe Kennedy Jr., and he had his son, Elliott Roosevelt, in a Mosquito right behind the BQ-8, where Joseph Kennedy Jr. was taken out of the 1948 presidential contest because it was on a date in August of 1944, which if I had to guess, I would guess it was the 12th of August of 1944 that Joe Kennedy Jr. was killed when his BQ-8 was detonated early by Elliott Roosevelt in the Mosquito directly behind him, which is exactly what happened to General George S. Patton. And for the same reason, General George S. Patton who said he was going to march through the Germans like crap through a goose, um, which brings up when you say goose and Germans and crap, it reminds me of Prince Fartingham and his geriatric goose-stepping beard. But Patton and Kennedy would have squared off in the campaign of 1948, and they were both taken out. Patton was taken out first when his 1939 Cadillac was driven over by a 6-by military truck, which didn't kill him because 39 Cadillacs had a lot of steel. So then they put him in a hospital and they killed him there. They didn't want Kennedy or Patton to come back to the U.S. If you want to see that it's not just America that kills their own, if you've heard the name Commander Harold Wilkinson Goulding, he was the guy that conceived and executed Operation JB, JB standing for James Bond, where they got Martin Bormann out of Berlin right before the Russians marched into town. It was Harold Wilkinson Goulding, Commander Commander in the Royal Navy, who got a bunch of awards, but the final award he got from his own country was a bullet because he knew too much. And that's what they used to do to people who knew too much, right up until the internet came along. But also, according to what I read in the Bible, in Isaiah 54:17, and again in Psalm 91:11-14, yeah, there's nothing to worry about if you're on the right side of these issues. So Commander Harold Goulding, oh, am I glad I brought that up? I'm somewhat surprised, Denise, you didn't remind me, but that's okay because I remembered on my own. While we were talking to Sean Stone in Colorado, I gave him a couple of really good ideas for movies. One, a documentary about Malaysia 370. Second one was either a documentary or a feature film to tell the world about Commander Harold Wilkinson Goulding. And as luck would have it, last month, Denise and I were at Commander Goulding's granddaughter's bed and breakfast. And so when I shared the information with Sean Stone, he thought that would make a very good subject for a movie. So hopefully at some point he and Goulding's granddaughter will be put in touch with each other and come up with a movie. Of course, a movie I'm really trying to make sure happens, and I'm sure it will one way or another, whether it involves me or not. I frankly don't care. But if anybody hires a simulator for about 2 hours, and the simulator is flown, all you need is 2 people to act like pilots. I just thought of one, so now we're down to 1 person to act like a pilot. But we could take off the aircraft and fly the flight plan to Baitad, turn around, point at Kuala Lumpur, and then turn right and head for the Maldives. And you could show the world what really happened to Malaysia 370 instead of what the media says happened to Malaysia 370. And the media, by the way, let's be more precise. The media's biggest liars as it pertains to Malaysia 370, unless someone in the chat room wants to correct me immediately, I'd say the biggest liars are Australia and the personages of Angus Houston and Warren Truss, who to this day are probably saying that they're going to continue searching on a bunch of ships that have F-U-R-G-O, Furgo, or is it Fugro? Agent Kinu knows, but there's a bunch of ships down there somewhere between Malaysia and Australia looking for an airplane that never went lost. And what they're really doing is mapping the ocean floor for oil exploration. David, over to you if you still have a voice.
Yeah, no, I think my voice is back. And so I just got this hideous image field that or one that you love, is sitting in the passenger seat of an aircraft, looking at the screen on the back seat of the passenger in front. And you can actually push in a code where it shows the track of your own aircraft and where it left and when it's expected at its destination. And if you could, from a technological point of view, it would be trivial, show the track of a hijacked aircraft with your face as an inset, it would be pretty scary, but you could watch yourself die. And it could be date stamped and time stamped for the deathbed people in the nearest 4-star or 5-star hotel at the point of impact. And I think with that, and I come back to Michelle Obama as archivist or an intellectual property lawyer, having the keys to such an archive, that would make her a pretty terrifying person. And with Hillary Clinton having access to the United States Patent and Trademark Office, which was outsourced to Serco, so she can download any patent or any combination of patent to hijack those aircraft, those two women need to be taken out and administered some rather unrefined justice to. But I'll leave that to the Marines. Over to you, Phil.
Oh, good. I think we're almost done. And I see that someone named Wildcat put a song up. And in the song, I don't see the title or who did it, but when I was younger, I wanted to be either an athlete or a singer or a fighter pilot. 1 out of 3 ain't bad. But I'll bet you that I can see the line getting so much resistance from behind. Do you have any idea what song that's from, David?
No, Phil.
Okay, well, wait a minute, because I have an idea, and I'll sing it to you right now. I believe it's from For What It's Worth by Buffalo Springfield. Let's find out. I'll put my camera on my screen, and then if this is what I think it is, and I'm not sure what now, wait a minute. Okay, I think it's going to go. Hang on, bear with me, David. I'll put the camera on the screen. I'm not sure what this is. I just hit Wildcat's link. But if this is what I think it is, and it is, it's called For What It's Worth by Buffalo Springfield. And I want to point out that's Buffalo Springfield, not Spring David. It'll take a while here, David, because they got 5 seconds of jump that I'm going to avoid as soon as I can. Here it comes. 3, 2, 1, avoid.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time to stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going on.
Children of God, I might add.
There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their mind, getting so much resistance from behind. When we stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going on.
Then they're going to say, what a field day for the heat. Field day, watch.
What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs and carrying signs. Mostly say, hooray for our side. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going on. Glorious fires creep into your life, it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. By the light, let it come and take you away. Stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going on. Stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going on. Stop now, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going on. Stop.
David, are you making noise? Oh, David.
Hello?
Yeah, you still there? David, are you still there? I know you're still there, but do you know you're still there? Oh, David. Okay, as a courtesy to David, I'm going to turn him off, or attempt to turn him off, so that he doesn't embarrass himself by shooting his dog. And I'm going to go around the chat room now and see if there's anything missing, as a courtesy to our chatters globally. Doo-dee-doo. First of all, I'm going to make absolutely sure we've got David off. And I'm doing that because if he doesn't know he's on, uh, maybe he'd pop the cork on that glass of wine for his ex. Are you sure you want to quit Skype? Yep. Okay, let's see now. I'm going to catch up. There was Skype going down. Wildcat said something here. Buffalo Springfield for what it's worth. Yes, and that's Neil Young. Wonder how many of these I can get. I can picture them. Steven Stills, Richie Furay, Neil Young. I'm missing two. There were 5 guys in that group. Okay, I got the 3 easy ones. Neil Young, Steven Stills. Oh, Graham Nash, Richie Furay, and somebody else. Oh, nice tune. Yep, nice tune. Love it. Yep. Trivia. They got the name from an old steamroller, Buffalo Springfield. Yep, that's absolutely right. Heavy equipment from the Rust Belt. Sounds like David Crosby. That you feel? No, that I was helping David Crosby. Oh, yeah, Obama, according to Ron Fry in Texas, Obama likes resistance from behind. That's true. Reggie loves it. Of course he does. That's, hey, Gordon, would you put up one of my favorite Google searches ever, which is Obama plus, let me think, Obama plus chorizo, Chorizo, plus Benghazi, plus Reggie, plus cornhole. When I grew up, if you talk like this about somebody who is pretending like he is president, you'd be shocked. Now, if you don't understand how evil these people are, you should be locked up, incarcerated because you're incompetent to get through the day without help. Okay, bye. Everybody said goodbye to David. That's good. David, goodbye. Thank you. Let's see if David's right here. There's people undoubtedly that would think I was being impolite to David by cutting him off, but he was not aware he was still on. I think that was the thing to do. Silas is there. Yeah, Silas is gone. Silas is golden. Oh, never mind. That's silent is golden. Silence. Okay, I'm looking. I think he might have left. Yes, he did leave because I got rid of him because I didn't want to embarrass himself. I better leave before I start dancing in my seat. I was listening at DR. Oh, at the doctor. Okay. Possible underground hangar. Aha. Yeah, there's underground hangars there. There's also a submarine base. There's also portable air-conditioned hangars. Field, have you seen Project Veritas? No, I haven't, Pamela H., whoever you are. Would you send it to me? It's, I think I have heard about it, but I'm not fluent. FIELDMCC@yahoo.com. Somebody asked about where the underground hangar is. I think what we're looking at there is the extreme southern tip of Diego Garcia, because it looks like ocean on the left and lagoon on the right, and that's consistent with Diego Garcia. That's just a guess. Don't take it to the bank. Come see us next summer jam. Yes, I know. We are going to come see you next summer jam. That's Denise and I are going to be at the summer jam, and we'll mind our own business. The only person I really want to talk to other than you and your wife is the Lutheran pastor. Hear that? That's called a jake break. Anybody? Denise, do you know what a jake break is? Most people don't. Okay, Denise didn't know what it was. You guys just heard it. It's a jake break. Somebody want to describe what that is? Oh yeah, the south end of Diego Garcia. There's a bunch of hangars there. They look like hangars, or they look like what they used to call in World War II revetments. Boulder, important. All the better they enjoyed it, Field Denise. Yeah, we did. Now catch up on some rest, please. Oh, we'll catch up when we're dead. Let's see. Thanks, David. Have a nice day. Multiple tasking. Peace all. Silence is golden. I almost put that one up. Huh, that's good. Field, you mentioned David Icke in a previous show. I wondered why, as you said, no more about it. I don't know much about David Icke, but I'm here to learn. if anybody wants to educate me about David Icke, I know that David Icke has a relationship to Richie Allen, and Richie Allen has had me on his show probably 5 times, and it always gets fairly good results. Kinu says there appeared to be what looked like a boat ramp running into the water by the wharves. Oh, that's interesting. He'd love to talk to you as well. I wonder who he's talking about. Oh, yeah, the pastor. Okay. Yeah, the pastor. I'd like to talk to a pastor. In fact, I wouldn't care when this is all over with David if once a month, instead of going to some spooky thing like Boulder, Colorado, which, by the way, was the best thing I've been involved in the last 10 years, I think. Was that a fair statement? Would you say that was one of the better things I've been involved in, or would you say the thing in May 15th was better or equal, or what's your opinion?
I think it's equal.
Ah, she says it's equal. The May 15th thing was called AV7, and if you want to see that, if you go to YouTube and put in Ian Crane, I-A-N, initial R, Crane, plus AV7 plus my name, you can see the tape from that. Otherwise, and I think she's right, we had the opportunity to speak for 1 hour and 7 minutes over at Milton Keynes with Ian Crane in May. And I think the interview done yesterday in Boulder with Sean Stone was very good, not because of anything I did, but because of the quality of the questions and the preparedness, the preparation of Sean Stone. On the original image, I saw FDJDG field. They've done a cut and paste tacky job in the current image. Ah. Okay, well, I think we're all up to date. So is there anything else you want to say before we leave?
No, not that I can think of.
Denise can't think of anything. David's gone. So let's see if Mensamax is here, because if Mensamax is not here, we will have a replacement. Mensamax is not here, so on the count of 3, a big yellow, red, green, blue, or pastel BRB, big button, and we'll end this misery. And we'll see everybody in 2 days on Thursday. The only reason we did it on Tuesday today is at this time yesterday. In fact, at this time yesterday, it was 1:30 in Boulder, because it's 2:36 here in Palm City. And at 1:30 yesterday, we were just stepping out of the car at the Denver airport, ready to get on Southwest Flight 633, nonstop from Denver to Minneapolis. I'm going to go out of this. Always makes David nervous when I do it. I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that at some point Denise and I will be going back to Boulder. I certainly hope so, and I think so. Gary H. was in Haiti delivering aid and food. He is back now, I'm told. Oh, I know who Gary is. Yeah, okay, well, thanks, Ron. And for Ron Fry in Texas, Denise and I will be down in Canton, Texas between the 8th and the, nope, that's not right, between the 10th and the 14th of November. If anybody wants to see where we're going, well, here, I'll show you right here. There's a picture. We're going to where this is, the Van Zandt County Veterans Memorial. There's an F4 there, a specific F4, 640965, and we're going to go down there. They're having an installation celebration for a 10-foot sculpture of an American serviceman kneeling, and I'm confident that he would be kneeling for one of his lost brethren because he wouldn't be kneeling to some raghead sheik. Hope that doesn't offend anybody other than raghead sheiks. Thanks, Denise. I'm looking forward to watching it 10 or 20 times. You know what, M4S? I'm looking forward to watching it once because, well, watch this. Denise doesn't like it when I try to get her, to talk too much. And, I didn't like doing this at first either, so I understand her completely. But when you're actually getting recorded and you're participating, you get in sort of a sync, SYNC, or a zone, ZONE. And even though you know that you're doing a fairly good job of answering the questions, you really can't observe what's going on too well. But you observed the whole thing, Denise. And didn't you think that the interview went fairly well?
I thought it was excellent.
She thought it was excellent. We got at least three other people, one being a producer, one being the director of content,
Mm.
and one being another guest. That's the only three I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
But they all used some superlative words, which I would repeat if it didn't sound egomaniacal. But the bottom line is, I am also M4S, looking forward to seeing the interview. And like everyone else, I'm critical of myself, and I'm going to hate it when I stop, like I just did, instead of being fluid. Because there's times where you're working so hard to make sure you don't misspeak and that you do speak accurately that you sort of, it's not like Hillary with her catatonic states. It's not that bad, but it's sort of like instead of saying Mary had a little lamb, Mary had a little lamb, that kind of stuff. And so I'm critical of myself over that. But then I think the bottom line is the information itself, not necessarily the delivery or the delivery boy. Okay, we're looking at some stuff from radar. Radar's got some images of some things to the south and west of Diego Garcia. I would love to see a discussion between David Icke and Field. Well, that's certainly fine with me, but Maranatha, I'm not sure David Icke, this is a question. I've never seen much of his stuff. I don't know if he discusses things with people or if he always just speaks on his own. Open question. Maybe you could email me, field@mcc. Oh, GoBanks just put up a Humanity Rising conference. Thank you, GoBanks. Oh, there's the big red button, and I'm looking for